Hi, everybody. Guess what? I finally reached him.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. He's been busy with his house, so
Yeah, too many repairs and too
too
many
many
things.
repairs. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So is the Pluto thing helping Capricorn right now?
Um, it depends on the Capricorn.
You.
Um, um, Not right now. It's for me. It's a little past. Actually, that's what leads into the one person that is pretty clear is Nikki Haley because she's right at the end of the sign, which is where Pluto is in a straddling motion. It's just entered into Aquarius, but it's due to come back for
Right.
another 3 months later in the year. So you read it as it's conjoining. So this would be her opportunity. If she's going to do something, it's got to be tonight. And she's a lot closer than that to Trump than in any other place because she's
Right.
already, I think, something like 10 or so points, which means that we've seen in the past quite a few times in New Hampshire, strange things happen. Like that's when Bill Clinton made his comeback and John McCain. Hillary Clinton was going to lose, according to all the polls in 2007, 2008, and she won. And she extended the race practically into June because of New Hampshire. So New Hampshire is an unusual place where she could get the
Well, when
result.
I read the cards on her the last time I was with the group, it was showing good for her. I was surprised.
Yeah, I know because look, if those cards are good and there are possibilities, any result tonight that isn't, I don't know, actually, even if she loses close, maybe that's enough. Maybe according to the wisdom, the worst she can do is lose in single digits. But the problem she has next is that South Carolina is more conservative than New Hampshire. So then odds are she loses to Trump there too. But she might then, go into Super Tuesday and extend it
Yeah.
further. So bottom line, this is it for her. Because the other thing is my sense of her political career, it's at risk because if you lose here, I don't think it's going to look good for future results in
Right.
her party.
Right.
Uh,
So we got some questions on Fanny. You took a look-see real quick on her.
I did, yeah. Like you can see where this always happens when a person runs into a problem. That you'll see Saturn somewhere, and it was there last year and into right around into the spring now. That's the most difficult part. There's still some other energy, say from Uranus, which will keep her off balance a little bit throughout the rest of the year. But I don't think any of this is enough to in any way end her pursuit of Trump or
Oh, they'd love for it to end the pursuit, but
no.
I do think maybe the guy that she's actually, because he bought her plane tickets so they could go off together. And the wife is the one that reported it. Um, I don't know if the wife's going to get in trouble, but I don't see Fanny. I still see Fanny on the case, but he might voluntarily step down to take the pressure off.
Right, which if that happens, that's
Then
not a
yeah, whatever.
yeah, whatever, exactly.
Um, and you were talking about pressures on Trump
Oh,
coming up.
Trump, yeah. Trump. Well, no, with Trump, the 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 wave moving in is gaining momentum as we go toward spring. In particular, by the time you get to April, the situation is getting really dicey, and then it keeps getting worse and worse into the summer, into June, July, and there's a point in April that is extremely dangerous because of health factors, and when I compare it to charts that I've come across,
Like Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry, it's as dangerous as it gets because you never want to have planets in the health death area of the chart because even if they don't completely take you out, they are not easy to work with. You put yourself in situations that are really maladjusted, and so they're extremely unhelpful regardless. But that plus another one that happens, there's a major conjunction in April. Jupiter and Uranus conjoin. What I noticed that was really peculiar is the same day practically, I think it's the same day of the conjunction, Mars is going through the other side. That's not, you're now adding more and more factors that can lead to an event, and it's not a good setup. And
And
you
you
think
said
about
late
Trump,
April?
No, it's about it's the third week, yeah. So it's the second half of April when this happens, right? But the thing about Trump is when you think of the way things have been going, because some of these aspects have been building all through last year, and the thing you notice about him in the last 12 months is that he seems more and more demented. He's saying more and more stupid things and reinforces them. He'll say World War III or World War II, Biden's going to take us in, and he keeps repeating it. Then he'll say, I'm running against Obama, and he repeats it again in the same.
And Nikki
Uh,
Haley.
Nikki Haley, he said Nikki Haley was responsible for the security at the Capitol, and more than once. And he was doing this meandering thing, saying things like, the banks are trying to debank you. Debank you is not even a word. What is that? I mean, he used to recover. He has a bit of a goofball mind, and he would say something moronic and then recover, like when he would say, we're looking at the future, the furniture, the future, things like that. But now it's accelerated. So if you guess, which is not a bad guess, that he is beginning to become less mentally, he's becoming more adult. And, this is another thing about Trump is everything he accuses others of is what he's doing. So if he's saying someone is crooked, he's crooked. If the person is losing their mind, he's losing his mind, right? And you could see how now he's starting to be insulted by a lot of people, lots of ads, Lincoln Project, it's on TV a lot. You can see how he'll probably react by upping his medicines. That's extremely dangerous. That's how you lead yourself into a health event at that age where you're, because he's probably going to be thinking, the reason they keep catching me, out of my mind is that I'm on, I'm not at the high point of my Adderall or whatever it is that I take.
Right. Well, even a speech when he was still president, he talked about the airports during the Civil War.
Yeah, no, well, even then, yes, it's true. It's true. It's true. But there was this thing where you could graph it and you would get goofiness, okay, for a while. Another one. Now they're getting closer and closer. And they're getting closer at the worst possible time. Because now what's going to happen? He's been in the background. The MAGA people are cheering the last year. Now, the sooner he is able to be the nominee, the sooner everybody's going to be paying attention. And according to what I hear, the Biden White House wants Trump. They want to run against him.
I want Trump too.
Yeah, exactly. Because they know that if you put anyone else in there, there's more risk. They're new. They can say, look, Biden is old. How do you say Biden is old when your guy is acting like he should be in a nursing home?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And this is real. I mean, we're not just saying it because we don't like Trump. Just watch or listen to what he's saying. It's really pretty remarkable, pretty crazy.
Well, you had told us way back when I first had you on the show, I know it looks like this guy gets away with everything, but mark my words, all of a sudden you're going to notice that he gets hit and hit.
Yeah, he gets hit.
And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, 23, the entry point was Saturn into Pisces, which again is pretty remarkable because that's the sign for him, but really early on because March was the first charge coming out of Alvin Bragg. And then there was another charge. And then there was August where there's another shift in there and he got charged twice, right? And things have not gone well. And the thing is that Saturn is in a really bad place. That's the last place you want a planet like Saturn in his condition because that's Saturn 30 years ago, which by the way, think about that. 30 years ago, Saturn through there was the time of his life when he was most broke and most completely disconnected from the world in the mid-90s. He owed billions. He literally disappeared from the early to like the 90s decade was a wipeout for Trump. Yeah. It was a disaster. That's what he's reliving now, right? But he's reliving it on this other scale where he's committed more crimes, which of course that's what he does. And he's older, and when you're older, health things, time things, they affect you more. And I don't see him. Do you see him? Does he go to the gym? Does he meditate? He doesn't do any of that. He just eats hamburgers, curses people, and whatever. That's how he lives. Not a good sign, in my opinion, for what is. And his family. You probably know that his family, there is a history. Although his father was a lot older when he started to.
But the mother got dementia. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So these things tend to repeat. The genes that way are quite powerful, and in the context of the types of aspects that he's traversing through. This thing that I keep seeing. A number of astrologers, sometimes psychics, they all jumped on the bandwagon late in the year when they saw the polls. That's what they were really doing. All of a sudden, they all were saying, Trump is now going to win. And this thing about Biden's health, Biden has health aspects this year. He does. But if you ask me to compare, I'll put my money on Biden ahead of Trump. When you compare health aspects, his are more dangerous. Well,
There was a thing on MSNBC, I barely caught it, saying that the Democratic Party in San Francisco has decided not to stand by Biden. I think that's fake news.
of course.
I find that very hard to believe, because then who else do you have to run? In other words, you're saying to everybody, pick. I think this was some sort of fake news that got in there somewhere.
Well, also too, and this is where again, don't pay attention to national polls. Pay attention to the battleground polls, especially the key ones like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. Those are key. This guy has to win them all. That's a tough haul. Like Michigan and Pennsylvania are very hostile right now. It's a big problem because he's already behind there. No matter what poll you see, all the results in elections are negative. So it's a big hill to climb. They need something to happen, and this is what we don't know. It's a question mark. They need third parties, to do something to interfere. I had a person say to me on my channel, the person said, it has nothing to do with the third party. In 2016, Trump won because people didn't vote. That's true. That's one of the reasons. But go online. It's online. The numbers are there. Trump won the election in 2016 because of Jill Stein. He won Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. If those votes go to Hillary, Hillary gets elected.
Yeah.
It was a really he won by a smidgen. Then he would say, oh, it was a landslide election.
No, it
Total
wasn't.
BS.
And
He
then
won.
Jill Stein was sitting with Putin having lunch.
Exactly. And by the way, we're talking like in one place, 10,000 votes got him in. They were her votes. You can see it. If you subtract her votes and give them to Hillary, Hillary gets elected.
She would have won.
It's that clear, right? So history would have been altered. Yes, it is true that Democrats also undervoted. So then maybe you would have covered Jill Stein. But I don't think there'll be a problem this year with the vote, because that way, always remember, if you put a figure like Trump in front of you, that's how you get a lot of Democrats scared out of their mind.
Yeah.
And voting.
The other thing is that this no labels bull. I just feel like it's a nothing burger.
Well,
They're
and also
talking about Manchin running. No, Manchin, nobody likes you. Not even
No.
your own party likes you.
And remember that No Labels is a Republican ploy. It's financed by people with money. It's basically third parties like No Labels, Jill Stein too. She did it before, so it's the same thing. They're just trying to siphon votes away from Biden.
Yeah.
The question is, though, are the Democratic voters smart enough? That includes JFK, by the way. All due respect. No.
But he's not
no.
taking votes from Democrats. He's taking votes from the Republicans.
Well, right. But I also say to some Democrats that have told me about JFK, there are two items on the menu. Don't be confused. It's Democrat, Republican. Any other vote, you might put the other guy in. Don't do it.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
especially if you live in Ohio. Ohio, by the way, it's another one. What do you see about Ohio? Do you get a feeling that Ohio might, because Ohio, with the women's issue, they totally cleaned their clock. And I'm wondering if that could even put that state in play. Do you get a sense that
Yeah,
that might
it's
be
in
true?
play because of the women's issue.
Because of the women's issue? Yeah, exactly. So
People may think Biden is old and blah, 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 but I'll tell you what, look at the things he's done. I'll take him in the New York Minute. Look at the stock market. Look at the prices of gas. 215 for gas. I ask people, I'm reading all over the United States, except in California, it's 4 something, but still.
Yeah,
It's
well, you know
just
what?
amazing.
With that, like what ends up happening is that the places where people pay more taxes, like the coasts, the gas is more expensive. It's more expensive up here in the West Coast in Seattle too. But like, when Gavin Newsom got into that big fight with Hannity, when he told them, well, yeah, so our taxes are higher, but who do you think pays the bills, Sean? Who do you think? Because they're always saying we're going to leave the country, we're gonna divorce the country. Okay, we'll go ahead and divorce, and then we'll see who pays. They're all taking money from the feds, but they're complaining about being in the country. I mean, it's the most hypocritical thing you can
Isn't
imagine.
it something?
It's just
if
brutal.
it wasn't for California and these other
Right.
states,
Yeah,
they'd have
exactly.
nothing. Because
Yeah.
we're the ones paying the bill. We make the
Yeah.
most money.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what sustains the country. If you made a country out of the red states, you would have a low level, whatever. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And I mean, all
Stephen
due
Miller.
respect to Stephen Miller. Yeah, Stephen Miller. First of all, there's enough pressure on that chart still, and there was last year. That, from what I know, he's made appearances in that, but I'm not aware of him being a super big figure. Usually, when a person is having effect, because I don't really watch Fox News that much, but anything on Fox News that is significant shows up on the other channels. And I've seen him once or twice, just blathering away. There's nothing there to suggest, that he's going to be the next little Goebbels, to help Hitler. No, I don't see that. You would see something to warn you about the possibility that he would be.
And you
part of
didn't
the power
see in
structure.
November that he's all happy because his master has won.
No, I didn't. But the thing about remember this thing we said in prior talks. One of the things that I really like is that Kamala's chart is very good in November. In fact, Kamala becomes a major political force starting in the summer, and you can see she is very focused on women's issues. She can speak to it, and because she knows this is probably the key issue. I think when we look back on this whole period of history, including 2024, it's women saving the country. Women are going to elect.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's happening.
And that Roe versus Wade, that was the sleeping giant. I told everybody when that happens, this is the reason the Republicans are going to be voted out.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And they can't. They're stuck. All of them, including Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley would love to be able to say, "No, yes, I know, I don't like that deal. Let's just give them." She can't do that because she has too many evangelicals that totally upset them. So they got to keep, this
Act like
millions
they
of people.
care.
Yeah. So then it's very tricky because.
Where in India you can get an abortion walking in a grocery store.
Well, I mean, even without saying any kind of thing that might be perceived as extreme, it's just not. It doesn't fit the world the way it is to do what they're doing. It's a crazy thing to do. It's a way to antagonize people.
Well, they went overboard. Instead of just saying, no, you can't use abortion as a form of birth control. How about when you have a baby that's going to kill you inside of you being able to get an abortion or a totally deformed child? They're saying no. That one woman in Texas that went in was aborting. They said, go home, go home, go home. Finally, she delivered at home. I don't know what she did with the fetus, but then they arrest her.
Yeah, no, there's no question.
And then a jury said not guilty. That's what will happen. You trying to put any of these women up, most juries will say, nah, leave her alone.
That's the thing. Juries are your peers. This is the other thing about, the scam that the whole thing with Trump. I mean, Trump, if he's convicted primarily by juries. There are people in your community, and the way the community feels when you know that 6, 7 out of 10 are for an issue or against an issue, then that's what happens, right? Doesn't matter that some judge somewhere thinks that it should be a certain way. It's not going to work. So I'm kind of amazed. I'm amazed because the other thing is Trump. Did you notice what he did? This is how it also shows you both his egomaniac and his insecurity. When he was on Fox, a disciplined politician, when he was asked about that, because a woman said, "Oh, well, why did you tell your people in the 22 election that they shouldn't talk about the Dobbs decision, the Roe v. Wade, because that would hurt them?" And then immediately he pivoted and he said, "No, I was the one that took it away. It took 50 years and I was the one." Now you wear it, right? Now you have to defend that.
Now you have to defend that.
Yeah, and the thing is, your people, they love that. But the other people, it's a lot more, say, no, that's a really bad idea. And so you'll lose a lot of women in the suburbs. You'll lose, which, by the way, you lose them anyway because they don't like him, right? This is the fear, the Biden campaign, their fear is if you put a Nikki Haley there or you put a normal Republican, they will lose votes in the suburbs of Philadelphia, places where it's helping them to win. You put Trump in there, they run for the hills because they don't like the guy, and now they especially don't like him, because of this issue.
Especially talking about dictators as if they're wonderful people.
Oh, yeah. No, he's telling people we need a strong man. I mean, he's preparing the country to say we need a Viktor Orban here, who's going to tell you what to do, silence the press, all those things, right?
That doesn't last long. That doesn't last long with anybody.
No.
Netanyahu, any looks on him lately?
Netanyahu, I think, is right in the end of his career, and he has to get around. There's an end of the year point, the when Pluto does its last visit to through Capricorn, because he's a late Libra, so he's not free of that pressure, and he's totally on the wrong side of the equation now because most of Israel doesn't like him. Doesn't matter that the war goes this way or goes the other way. So I would say this is the year when there's going to be a switch, in Israel. By the way, that's another thing that we're kind of on the edge of a lot of things because I was just reading that a lot of democracies throughout the world are holding elections this year, and the downside is that there's a lot of AI. You probably heard of that AI robocall they did in New Hampshire with Biden's voice to do a fake. But
Totally a fraud.
it was totally a fraud. But what's interesting is that technology also covers itself. So the fact that you and I are hearing about it means that it didn't work, right? They tried to
Right.
scam and then, so I think you'll see a lot of that, attempts to fool people and so forth. But if on the whole, and I suspect that's what's going to happen, more places by far than not are going to push away the fascists, the people that are
Yeah.
trying to.
Did you see that wonderful march in Germany?
I didn't. What happened?
Oh, they didn't like the right wing or something was going on and the streets were packed. At least 1 million some odd people standing in the streets marching against fascism.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing.
They've been there, done that. They're not going to play it anymore.
No, you know what it is? I mean, in a way, without saying that this is 100% what's going on, there's this big split between cities and country people. People in cities, by and large, stay in touch with media, they read, they become informed, they tend to vote Democratic, and they're not going to like fascism because they understand how complicated that is. Some guy, lives in the country, he thinks, oh, I don't want to be taxed, and yeah, maybe we put a strong person in there. Well, that's great, except that you get outnumbered, basically. You get outnumbered by the cities. Thank God, because if not, yeah, we would be in a lot of trouble. So, yeah.
Pluto and Aquarius, how will this affect the United States?
I think Pluto, first of all, Pluto and Aquarius, where it is now, it's not quite out yet. So Pluto is fully in Aquarius, out of Aquarius next year. That's when it goes into Aquarius till 2042. But I think it's a good change because Pluto and Capricorn is what led to all this trouble because Pluto and Capricorn is closely connected to fascism, just like it was in Cancer. Those two signs, the Cancer period was the 1930s, and it led to a rise in the, like the Empire of the Rising Sun, Mussolini, Hitler, all these fascists and fascistic impulses. Now, same thing, but it's ebbing. It's moving away. And so Pluto and Aquarius, on the plus side, though, it's going to revolutionize technology. If you recall, last year, Pluto and Aquarius, when that first thing with AI came out, were the 2 months when Pluto was just entered Aquarius. So you should see that developing more and more. And even though it scares a lot of people, technology, if correctly used, is really helpful because it makes things easier. I mean, people, take for granted, they turn on their light. Go back 200 years, you're not turning on anything, you're lighting a fire or, whatever. So a lot of this, we take it for granted, right? But it's because it keeps advancing. And if you can, for instance, solve health problems and, things that befuddle doctors, whatever, anything you can do with technology is good. And we're in a now big 20-year span with Pluto and Aquarius. The other thing about Pluto and Aquarius, if you look at back in the 19th century, that period saw a lot of uprisings. So I'm thinking places like Iran, places where women are being oppressed. The Aquarius is a democratic people sign.
Yes.
The people rebel, right? I think it happened in France, and and that's a long time ago. Now there's more communication. So I think this is very bad news for people like Putin and Trump and these people that think that they can just step in there and
I always saw Iranian women standing up. I always saw them fighting.
Yeah.
Coming up from underneath the ground is how I saw it.
I mean, the one question mark that I have is the most logical chart for China has it goes back to the Mao revolution, and there was a certain time. I mean, you can definitely come up with it pretty accurate, and that's where Pluto is going through the rising degrees. So China is a big question mark. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that one. What do you get around? what China might do.
I never felt China doing something they shouldn't be doing. I know they'd love to. Apparently they have more. Is it Russia or China that has more nukes than anybody else?
No, Russia has more, but China has more. China has a lot more money, a lot more soldiers. China's a bigger military force,
But they're showing they were able to prove that Kim Jong-un has been sending nuclear weapons to Russia.
really,
Yeah.
well, it's not like they need them. They have enough. But I mean, nuclear weapons, that's nuclear weapons. You can't even attack any country that is nuclear armed. Like,
Because they'll take them out.
yeah, like if you attack,
If North Korea hits South Korea, not only is North Korea going to go, but then all the ones that are facing us will go against all of them.
yeah, it's not. They're weapons of deterrence, but you can't. For instance, I remember you remember this with they were showing RT, the Russian, like the equivalent of Fox News in Russia. So they're all like Fox News, but there'll be some that are even more extreme. And they were saying things like, "We should just nuke the United Kingdom," and I was thinking, "Don't do that. It's a bad idea."
It's the end of Russia too.
The United Kingdom, they're a small country, but don't ever attack a country that has nuclear missiles. Israel, France, the UK, because they'll fire back. And if they fire back, everybody's going to die. It's just not a good plan, you know?
It's just not a good plan.
yeah,
And we've sort of committed ourselves to assisting them. So we'll also be firing.
Yeah, that's also true. I mean, I think that a lot of these people, they need to make noise to keep their people in line. It's the same thing Putin does. Putin keeps saying all his problems are because of the West. They're not. You start a war, what's that got to do with the West?
Oh, I
But if he
know.
tells them, I was forced into it by the evil Western, then people think, they're in a battle. That's how Iran paints it too. It's all the U.S.
Yeah.
fault. Yeah.
But I don't think the women appreciate what Iran's doing. I really don't.
No, this is the other thing that I've had this feeling for quite a while, a number of years, that this discovery of this planet in 2005 that shifted Pluto out of the order astronomically, and then it acquired a woman's name. It's a warrioress. So women are basically changing the world. They really are.
Yeah.
Now, we're not saying all the women are good, obviously, because we can talk about Lauren Boebert, who, by the way, isn't going to get elected. I doubt it.
Oh,
Very
she's
much.
going. She's gone.
No,
But you know
because
who I'm on the fence about? Marjorie Taylor Greene.
yeah, hers doesn't look as bad. That's the whole point.
She
'cause I
might
looked
actually
into
get
too.
in, but the thing is, she won't be able to speak because she's going to be outpowered.
Exactly, but Boebert, the worst possible chart to be running. She shifted districts. I don't think it's going to matter, right? But
Right.
by and large, because this is like saying, when you put a category, not everybody in that category is the same, and you get good and bad. But the majority if you see it as a gender, they can save the world, because otherwise you would get this fascist impulses. I mean, I guess that would be really something if someone should make a movie about that, a fascist woman. It was, it just always feels like a runaway crazy male doing
Right.
something like that. Yeah, exactly.
So have you taken a look-see at our Hunter Biden lately?
Hunter Biden, what I keep thinking about Hunter Biden, he doesn't have an astrologer. I would be telling him, get it in court as soon as possible, because Hunter Biden, the energies in the middle of the year are very favorable. So it's nothing. It's a nothing burger. Nothing. This is why if you know your astrology and you have good planets, you lean into it. You realize, okay, you want to do it, let's do it. He was doing the right thing when he went to Congress and he said, hey, I'll talk. And then they were embarrassed because he's there, and they didn't want to do it. They want to do it behind the scenes, right? So yeah, no. In fact, Biden's chart is definitely good enough to win. But if you ask me, I would hope it would be better if he had Hunter Biden's chart. Then it would be like a cruise, in terms of winning
Really?
the election. Yeah. It's just that Hunter Biden is not running for office, but that's
Right.
how much better it is.
I feel like it's just going to be, and I don't even think Biden has to say, I commute my son's sentence or anything, because they're making stuff out of nothing. They're taking it. If you and I had the same thing happen, they wouldn't even be looking twice.
No, and the thing is, you see, the thing about this is that the guy that they put in charge, this is, Biden's benevolence and Biden's fairness. He left a prosecutor in there. Trump would never have done that. Trump would never have allowed one of his children to be chased by the prosecutor, the other guy left, right? So that guy found a way to keep the Republican base happy, charging, but it's a charge that doesn't have any teeth because you go into court and his lawyers, they're going to say, well, he paid the taxes. Okay, so that's what would anyone else get for this?
And penalties, he paid the IRS.
Paid everything
yeah.
already. So then what can you do to the guy more than a slap on the wrist?
Oh, and then they mentioned they found a little trace of cocaine on a gun belt he had. I
Yeah,
said,
sure.
oh my God, call the DEA.
Sure, I know.
He
I know,
said I
that's-
had a drug problem. He told them I had a drug problem. And a lot of the United States have children with drug problems or family members that can relate to this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
Just
rampant.
like I said, Texas taking that woman that had the baby or the deceased fetus, you know, and then they're going to put her in jail and put her before a jury. And the grand jury, was it the grand jury failed to charge her?
I didn't
Or did
follow
she
that
actually
case.
have the trial? But I see that they said, nope.
I didn't follow that case, but you were telling me that basically, yeah, that when it came to the judgment, they didn't get their wish because once you start involving groups of people, you know that the country's against it. This is why they're afraid now. They were even trying to do things like let's make it 60% because they know high 50s, absolutely not. And this doesn't matter if it's Kansas, you know, Kentucky, places where Democrats never win. So that's pretty scary. That's why I was thinking a place like Ohio all of a sudden becomes vulnerable. You're putting another state that is turned red in play because the women in
And
that
a
state.
lot of these red states are picking, Wisconsin picked that liberal judge. You know, they're blowing it, man. They're blowing
Yeah.
it.
This is the thing to remember when you're studying the election. Track there are 10 at most states. I think it's the main ones are Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and then you have North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. But you could maybe add Nevada, you know, a few more places. But after that, like California, you were saying San Francisco. California is going to vote Democratic no matter what, just like Kentucky will vote Republican. You know, give that up, and it doesn't matter if you've got some national poll with some, you know, some
Yeah.
percentage.
And also, I think Alabama, but I'll tell you who's not liked. It's that Sarah Huckabee. She's got a 28% likability rate because she lied. You just don't, I don't care if you're a redneck. The only one that can lie and get away with it is Trump. She bought that thing and lied about the money and stuff, and they don't like her anymore.
That was that because they were saying that she's being considered for the vice presidency.
No.
And
Listen,
no.
he already announced that he's picked his VP, and he called him a he.
Is
He
that
didn't
right?
say she. He said he.
He.
I saw him out of his own mouth, although, you know, he's mentally unfit. So, but
Let me see.
I got a hit, and I'll just tell you, and you probably haven't watched my show, but I think all of a sudden he's been throwing Ben Carson out there.
Ben Carson?
I'm thinking it might be Ben Carson because Ben Carson would be no threat to him whatsoever.
Yeah, but Ben Carson would attract a lot of derision and laughter, and you know, because Ben Carson, he's
He
almost
doesn't think that way. Trump doesn't think that way. You
he's
and
the-
I know this.
he's the ambient man. He's like on a permanent ambient trip. He sleeps through it, and he walks himself into. You'll do an interview, and he said something about, oh yeah, he compared Trump to King David, and he was on Fox, and the interview guy goes, so you're saying he's like King David, and then there was this long silence because he realized what he had just said, and then he tried to backtrack and say a few things. So he's out to lunch, and you notice with Trump too that with his mind, he's so out of it. He referred to Stefanik. Stefanik. She said, Elise Stefanik. he just cannot remember. These are things I think at that level you have to be
And these
prepared all the
people like
time.
Elisa Stefanik, she's an educated woman, and she's selling her soul to the demon.
Yeah, well, there'll
We
be
must get rid
consequences.
of these hostages. You know, the January 6th people are hostages, and that E. Jean Carroll is lying. No, she's not.
No, and that's the thing that, you know, if you're in court and if your argument is to say person goes to court and a jury that was, picked, and before that there was a grand jury that charged. So you've got multiple groups of people looking at evidence and convicting you. What are you pointing to the deep state for? These are the people that live in your community.
Yeah.
Then they'll say the next step is to say, well, and Trump he would be judged in D.C. Well, I have a good solution for that. How about you don't commit crimes in D.C. next time? That way you won't be charged in D.C., right? That's how the rules work. The district where you commit the crime is where you will be judged.
And he wants rule of law, and he's the least rule of law person there is.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Just
So,
unbelievable.
Catherine Benson said, generally speaking, would a transisting Pluto conjunct ascendant at 0 degrees of Aquarius be as difficult to navigate as a transisting Pluto conjunct natal Venus at 26 degrees of Capricorn in the 12th? Does any of that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Okay, so of course, the person is not describing the rest of the chart, but of those two, the Pluto, without, again, you got to qualify, you got to see exactly what's going on with the chart, but without, just as a snapshot, I would take the Pluto on the ascendant is a better transit, because Pluto on Venus in the 12th is a changing, very strong force trying to append something in your life, change it from something to something else, and it's going to feel more uncomfortable. On the ascendant, it's an empowering, very empowering period. A person with Pluto transiting their ascendant will change their personality toward empowering, themselves and projecting more power. And keep in mind that it's about a 2-year process because it moves in and out. But a good way to understand that is the U.S. in its chart had Pluto on the ascendant during 9/11. That's why there was a terrorist attack. And then the U.S. became extremely angry and went around making war in different parts of the world. You can then argue about whether that's good or bad, but ask Osama bin Laden how that worked out for him. Took a while, but it's tough when you play those games.
My son's calling me. He has to pick up his car, so I better end this. We were on for a good amount of time.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, and I have
Covered
a
a lot
feeling
of
that
ground.
I think we're now getting near the, I don't know if the word is ground zero or whatever. We're getting into really interesting territory because a lot of things are going to start to shake out. So yeah, I look
Okay,
forward to
so
the next one.
listen, next week you?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, next week.
We're gonna start getting busy, my friend.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely.
We got a lot of things to look at.
Exactly. All right.
So thank you guys for checking out. Thank you.